All right. Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast, where we ask ourselves, of all the shithole nations, why the Savage Land? All right, guys, so episode 1 went up a few hours ago. We got a lot of feedback from you guys, some good responses. It was great. We want more. Thank you to all of our friends and people who are helping us get this out there, who are retweeting. It was awesome to hear from some of you guys. What we're going to do with this second episode is we're going to start off with kind of a best of, which, you know, to be fair, you guys have no reason to value our opinions, but we're hoping you do anyway. But it's the new year. Everybody's best of list for 2017 are coming out, so we're going to throw some at you guys.
Get on that good old bandwagon.
Yeah, why not, man? So we've got a few categories laid out. We did do some behind-the-scenes magic to get on the same page with this stuff. Just, you know, so you guys know where we're coming from. All of us are, I'd say, voracious readers of comics for the most part. We all have a fairly large pull stack, and we all have a fairly knowledgeable background of what we do and what we like, and it's pretty varied, I think. I think we all like different things.
I would agree with that. I think we all have different flavors, and while we cross over on some things, there's also some things that I read that Sean doesn't, that you don't, so on and so forth. And,
yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, well, my reading list isn't necessarily as comprehensive as your YouTube's, but I think I got a nice variety of mix in there. Though some of these categories were a little hard for me to come up with an answer.
Yeah, go for quality over quantity, man. It's not a bad thing at all.
That's Savage Dragon.
always.
Savage Dragon cannot be your answer for every one of these, Sean.
Now I need to redo my list. Thanks. All right.
Again, I want to preemptively apologize because if you hear me dying in the background, I'm still fighting this stupid head cold. It won't go away. I've sent a letter to Mexico for medicine. We're going to hear back hopefully sometime soon about that.
And just for refreshing, that was Caleb that was just talking. I'm Craig.
And I'm Sean.
Yeah, introductions and stuff. That's probably a thing we need to do.
Well, until people get used to hearing our voices, for sure.
Wait, you don't know me already?
No, I know you, but I'm going to assume that people out there in La La Land don't.
But do we really know each other? We didn't even know about Gambit until the last episode.
That is a fact. My buddies, my counterparts in this discovered new things about each other despite a years-long friendship.
Have the little comic book box with the asterisk saying see episode 1 for that reference.
So before we get started, you guys have any shout-outs, anything you want to toss out into the universe, any thank yous or anything?
Just thanks to those of, like you said, that retweeted and reposted and shared our link last night and this morning and have commented on it. All feedback is positive, whether it's critical feedback or not. It's still positive because we can use it to grow from. So
Right on.
Yeah, I'm just appreciating all the friends that have already just asked me what it's about. Haven't had time to listen to it yet, and I actually had a few that seem a little maybe interested in coming on.
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see about that.
Yeah, we'll get some folks in that fourth chair at some point. That'd be awesome.
Indeed.
I do have one. We had a friend reach out on one of the links and have a few questions for us. Joy Reinbold, if you're listening to this episode, we appreciate you reaching out to us and asking us stuff. I want to preemptively kind of address what she was asking. Essentially, for anybody who didn't see, Joy is she's not an established comic book reader, it doesn't sound like. It sounds like she's somebody who found the podcast, wanted to look into some comics, and has a plan to reading comics, and wants to know where to start. We're going to talk about a whole lot of books on here, and I don't mean to speak to somebody as if they're a complete layman, but I want to break stuff down just so anybody and everybody can know. She asked where to start reading. So when we talk about a lot of these books, a lot of them are going to be collected in what's called trade paperbacks. What that is a collected edition of the books. A lot of times it's the first 5 or 6 issues stuck into one easy to handle, easy to read storyline.
it's usually a story arc that contains one completed, and I put that in quotes,
Right.
Story. You can pick that trade paperback up, read it, and have a self-contained story for the most part.
Yeah, almost all the publishers put them out there. I honestly don't know of any that don't put out trade paperbacks. It's kind of the way to get stories out there to people who don't want to read, who don't want to pick up comics on a weekly basis. If you were listening to our last episode, we talked about how Image does their first trade paperbacks are usually at a $10 price point, as opposed to other trade paperbacks which are at a $15 or $20 price point. It's a good way to jump on. But if you're not interested in spending money right now, if you're not sure that this is what you want to listen to, there's another really cool trick that you can do without really spending much money at all. Go to your local library system. If you live near a public library, chances are most, if not all of them, are going to have a comic book / graphic novel section. Go sign up for a library card, which you should have one anyway. It's a really good tool. I should step on my own toes there because I don't. I need to get on that. Public libraries are a great place to find a variety of things, be it film, books, literature, those things that you open up with words that speak to you. They're also one of the only places left in our country that you can go in and not be expected to spend money. So that's a major bonus. You should keep that alive and well. The public library system is it's a foundation that we need to keep intact in this country.
So I was going to say a couple of things there that you touched on that I'd like to kind of hit some more there. First of all, some terminology. A floppy, you'll hear us say floppy, pick up a floppy and read it. That is your week-to-week comic book that comes out. Usually once a month, maybe every other week, and sometimes weekly by title.
I will laugh at that every time because I'm a child.
Floppy?
Yeah.
That's okay. So then the other one is trade paperback, which Caleb just went over with you. You will hear some people refer to it as a graphic novel. I will never refer to it as a graphic novel.
because graphic novels are something different.
Exactly. But there are people in the industry that make money off of comic books.
Right.
But because it sounds so childish, they won't say the word comic book.
Yeah.
And they will call trade paperbacks or call comics graphic novels. The people that work at Walking Dead.
Not to drop names or anything. Yeah, man. So comics, one of the things I love about comics are for the most part not high-end art. They're low-end art, and that's what makes them beautiful. Don't try to make them something they're not. Don't be pretentious.
Exactly. Some other things, Omnibus, which theoretically should contain an entire complete set. They never do. They contain sections, large chunks. They're hardback books that contain sometimes up to 200 pages of comic books, if not more.
Usually a great way to actually start on a book, especially some of the older comics that they collect in omnibuses. What is the plural?
Omniboo. Looking at you, Jason Wood.
So there's just a few things. So Joy asked about where do you begin? I have a very simple answer to that because there's not really a simple answer. So the first thing you have to do is decide what it is that you like. Do you like traditional superhero? Do you like kids comics? Do you like horror comics, sci-fi? Because it's all out there. Whatever genre you read, it's in comic books somewhere.
Yeah, and there's no wrong answer to that question.
That's right. Crime, if your thing is crime drama, that's out there too. So what you do is you find, let's say superheroes are your thing, and you know who Batman is, you know who Superman is, Spider-Man, the big ones, you know who they are. Go to your local comic book store and pick up the one on the wall for this month, because it's going to give you the backstory. Anything you need will be readdressed in that book.
Yeah, a lot of these books have been going on for 60 to 80 years. Just jump on. Yeah.
Yeah, don't let the number intimidate you. So it's issue 700. None of us started, not one person that I know started at issue 1 on any of those books.
Yeah, unless your name is Stan Lee.
Yeah, Action Comics is getting ready to go. It'll be on issue 1000 here next month or the month after.
Yeah. And that's how much the book actually cost, is $1,000.
Yeah, it's a hardback.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Crazy.
wow.
Yeah.
You're going fancy with that.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, though. Like I said, the numbers can be intimidating, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are people out there that don't know it, but pick up an issue of Batman. I'm sure you know Batman's origin. I'm sure you know what Batman's about.
And if you don't, they will retell his origin.
You will hear about them parents. And that
issue.
alley.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to know Batman's origin just from picking it up after. If you don't know it, you will. Spider-Man, same thing. Superman, Thor, all of them. pick a character, you walk in, look at the covers, find one you like, and go, I'm just going to try that. And if you read it and you don't like it, try another one. And so the first answer to that question is find the genre you want, and then jump in. If it's going to be horror, sci-fi, or crime, or something of that nature, you're probably going to do a lot better in what we call the third party or independent, which is kind of a bad name for it, but it's what they call them in the industry. Image falls into that group. They're really one of the bigger publishers these days.
Right.
But they have a lot of comics that fall into these other genres besides just superheroes. They do have superhero comics, but that's where you're going to find books like The Walking Dead, Invincible, Savage Dragon, Spawn, Saga, on with any of Brubaker's crime dramas you're going to find on there. So Image is a good place to go for that sort of thing, as are some of the smaller third party and independent. We gave a shout out to Aftershock yesterday. Still nailing it. Read a new book from them today that I really love. Brilliant Trash, amazing book. Just started 2 issues in. There's lots of books out there.
I'm not picking that one up. Do you know who the creative team is on that one?
I do not.
We'll figure it out. There are literally thousands of comics. We can't remember all of them. But another good one from Aftershock that is coming out by a person named Margaret Bennett. Marguerite? I'm not.
Marguerite, I believe.
Not really sure. It's called Animosity, which there's actually a spin-off of it now. Solid book. So yeah, we're listening to these. We're talking about these different books, and most of them have trades or collected editions out right now. So if you're looking for a good place to start, that's a good place to check it out. Go pick up some of these other titles from companies like Aftershock, companies like Boom, Dynamite, Lion Forge is a good one that I really like. And there are hundreds of others. If you ever get the previews catalog, flip to the back of the book. That's where all of your independent and smaller publishers put their stuff. It's just because it doesn't have the major stamp of approval from a company like DC or Marvel or even Image at this point, doesn't take away from it at all. It's still quality stuff. And these are the people who actually need your money. They're the people who are actually working to make comics on the ground level.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
So, all right, guys, how about the best of 2017? So we broke this down into a series of different, I don't know if you call them qualifications or categories or what we're going to call them, but so we're going to look at things like best all ages comics, best fantasy, best adventure, horror, superhero, best crossover, colorist, artist, writer, ongoing series, and comic of the year. And I'm sure we're all going to have some honorable mentions that we're going to throw in there just for the fun of it. But yeah, so that's where we're going with it.
All right. We'll start at favorite all ages comic. For me, it's Archie. Kind of written for teenagers, but certainly kids could read it. And I, as a 46-year-old man, enjoy reading it. The main title, Archie, it's been really good dealing with some real teenage things that happen. Betty getting in a car wreck and her parents blaming Archie, that sort of thing.
Right.
Just really dealing with things that...
Some true to life.
Yeah, in dealing with it in a fun Archie way, but still dealing with the emotions.
Yeah.
So...
Awesome.
Who's writing that?
Mark Waid is writing that. They've had so many different artists that, like every story arc, they've had different...
So when you're doing these books... The art in comics now is so, honestly, it's so good that a lot of your artists can only do a couple of runs. And so the writers will jump ahead and get their story arcs mapped out, and they'll give these different threads, these different arcs to different artists so that they can meet production schedules like that. So sometimes we'll just say that it's done by various artists. We will try to give those dudes and dudettes, because that's still a word, they're due and proper by name dropping them, because they do deserve it. But sometimes there's just a ton of writers, especially on some of the books that we're going to list here in a moment.
Pete Woods right now is the artist.
Pete Woods?
Archie.
Nice. All right, well, I'll go ahead and drop mine, if that's cool. My favorite all-ages comic right now is DuckTales from IDW Publishing. It's another one of those books that it's actually written by a bunch of people and drawn by a bunch of people. It's a licensed product from IDW. IDW does some great different license things. They're in charge of doing a lot of like the Golden Age artist editions and stuff like that. They've got all kinds of books from cartoons from our childhood. But yeah, man, DuckTales just makes my inner kid happy. Uncle Scrooge, Donald, Huey, Dewey, Louie, the little ducks, all of those guys going on adventures, getting into shenanigans. And it's great for kids, man. They all have some type of moral lesson without being super heavy-handed. It's just fun stuff. The ducks, yeah, the Quack Attack is back, man.
It's just a good book. It's I've been collecting it and reading it occasionally. I'm not reading every issue, but
Yeah.
it's just a good book.
Well, this one was a little tougher for me because, to be honest, most of my monthly reads are not child friendly. Usually for younger audience, at least, anyway.
Especially since we made him take off Savage Dragon.
Yeah, they not allowed me to have Savage Dragon list. But then I remembered the reason I'm here is a little bit of my broader horizon on my books. I'm gonna go with a manga. I mentioned it last episode. I mentioned again, My Hero Academia.
Right.
Maybe for older kids, but still nothing in there that's going to shy away from a young kid. You
Right.
would want to see young kids. It's about kids growing up in a school to teach them how to be superheroes. And of course, the struggles of the main hero being different from everyone else. I think it's relatable for a lot of kids that feel ostracized, from some of the other kids in their schools.
Okay.
It's fantastic. It's written and drawn by a person I'm about to probably brutalize their name, but it is Kohei Horikoshi.
Sounds good to me.
It's a fantastic manga.
And manga is comic books.
It is.
Fully agree. I'm just not very well versed on them.
I'm not either.
That's an area
That's
I
what
don't,
I'm here for.
I don't dip my toe in the manga that much. If that's even legal, I'm not sure if you're allowed to dip anything in manga.
It's Japan.
Oh yeah, you can dip anything
Oh,
into manga. It's
cool.
I mean,
It's Japan. They're cool about it.
tentacles, whatever.
Of course, we're going to drop a tentacle porn reference in the all ages section.
Can we save that for the anime episode?
Any honorable mentions or shout outs you want to drop in this one?
All
Oh,
ages.
I actually do have one.
Okay.
The DC the Supergirls book.
Yeah, Superhero Girls.
Superhero Girls book. I don't personally read it, but everything I hear about that book is it's a fantastic book for little kids to read.
Yeah, man.
And it's great for getting any little kid, but I'm hearing specifically little girls. It's very because it is oriented around the girls of DC Comics, so Supergirl and Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, but done in a kid's way.
Yeah, that was actually going to be the one I was going to talk about too. So I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah, I've got a couple of different nieces. Two of them are, I think, 9 and 11 at this point. I could be wrong on that because one of them just had a birthday. I'm probably a bad uncle for not remembering the exact dates, but I've got those. I've got most of those collected because they don't come in what we call floppies. They come in collected editions in trade paperbacks, and so I picked those up for my girls, and they love them. And you want to talk about just fulfilling on the insides. Seeing my nieces sit there and just read comics, reading anything, but specifically comics, man, that just fills your heart. That warms it up, and that's what we want. We got to get a new generation of kids reading these books.
And that can be a subject for another podcast, but absolutely something that the comic industry has to address.
They really
that
do.
is how do you maintain your older audience while still creating a new audience? Because eventually, us older people that have been reading it for a long time are going to not be around to read.
I'm gonna live forever. I'm here. I'm queer. I'm fucking mortal.
I get it. I plan to be here for a long time too, but the industry itself will start to peter out if they don't find a way to get there.
Yeah, they will. I think the average reader, the average age for comic readers right now is somewhere in the early 30s. And it's a shame when you walk into a comic shop and there's only one small section of stuff that kids should actually read instead of being an entire wall or something major with a lot of variety and diversity to pull from.
You're absolutely right. Though to be fair, a lot of the youth though they read manga.
Yeah, they do.
Manga has a much younger general range of readership. But we want to keep Western comics alive. They absolutely need to appeal to the younger.
I just want kids to read DuckTales, man.
Dude, they should.
Well, I mean, so all of the Disney books have been really good. They're beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
Their IDW puts out all of Disney's books, which I don't know their arrangement with Disney versus Marvel.
Money.
Well, it makes you wonder that there's not some sort of tie-in in there. But all of the Disney books have been really good. That, like I said, beautifully drawn, beautifully put together as Disney books tend to be anyways. And the covers are just fascinating. And if you have kids, that's a good place to start. and the Scooby-Doo books. In DC puts out Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? That's a fantastic book.
All great stuff, man, and a lot of stuff that we're reading. They're all ages comics, and sometimes as a grown ass man, I like to sit down and read about some ducks and some Scooby Doo and all that fun stuff.
Sometimes you don't want to get too deep into
man.
Clayface killing his friends. Sometimes you just want to read about, Uncle Scrooge diving in a pool of coins and swimming around.
I've always wanted to do that.
It'd have to hurt.
I just go back to my good old Calvin and Hobbes collections.
Oh, it's so good.
Calvin and Hobbes.
All right, well, what's next on the list?
The next on the list is best fantasy, and I don't know how you two describe fantasy, but to me, fantasy is always sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
That when I think of because technically, just about any comic book you read can fall into or into fantasy. For me, it's what defines that is Conan or even Star Wars, or where they're swinging swords and there's magic users. And right now, for me, the book that tops that list is Birthright, written by Joshua Williamson, with Lucas and Breeson doing the art on it.
Yeah.
And it's just been a good book. It's been good. About a kid that, as a kid, him and his brother and dad are playing catch. Ball goes into the weeds. Into the bushes. He goes into the bushes to look for the ball and disappears. Gets sucked to another land. A couple of years pass in our time. He comes back as a full-grown man and has been fighting a war in this other land and brings that war back to Earth.
Okay.
And it's just come to find out his grandpa's a wizard from that land, and it's just been fantastic. So honorable mention for that one would be The Woods by Tinian.
Okay.
But we'll get back to that later.
Mine. You actually name dropped it just a minute ago. Mine is Conan.
Huh.
It's from Dark Horse Comic, Conan the Slayer, specifically written by Cullen Bunn. I'm a big fan of a lot of stuff that guy does. I don't know that there's anything that Cullen Bunn can't write. I actually don't know if there's anything that he doesn't write. He writes like 40 books a month. We're all pretty sure he's a robot that doesn't need sleep. And I want to know his magic secrets because I hate sleep. It's done by various artists. Another one of those books that they do by arcs. Sergio Davila did a lot of the heavy lifting in that book. It ended up being a 12-issue series. It wasn't an ongoing. Much to my chagrin, because it was just solid. Actually, recently in the news, we found out that Marvel just got the rights to Conan back. Yeah. Starting in 2019, it's going back to the House of Ideas, which, for better or worse, I'm pretty pumped about it. I have a huge stack of old Marvel Conan books at home. They did a great stuff. Marvel typically does a good job with a lot of their licensed stuff. Some of their Star Wars stuff is just banging right now. I'm really excited about that. But in this Conan arc, there was a lot of stuff that happened. There's a few different ones. If you've ever watched the movies, read Conan books, it's everything you think of. It's Conan before he became the king. It's Conan before he became the conqueror. It's his adventures as a young man, breaking chains, finding scantily clad maidens that just want to woo him with their nethers, just breaking all kinds of weird voodoo curses. He finds an island with some weird Monte Picchu monster, which was, I don't know how they dug into it or decided what they wanted to do, but it was just good stuff, man. It's a fun adventure romp. Fun fantasy, gets to the heart of Conan, what is best in life, what's the riddle of steel, it's the hand that wields it. It's just good stuff, and Conan gets to play with the pretty ladies.
It's a great book. I really enjoyed it. I tend to enjoy anything that Cullen Bunn writes, but that was one of his.
For the most part, I love the guy. He's had a few misses, but when you're writing 20-something books a month, you can afford to have a miss or two. That dude just puts out quality in most of his stuff.
He's one of the guys that if he writes it, I'll at least give it a try.
Right? Yeah.
Any honorable mention, Caleb?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well then I'll go ahead and jump in. Best fantasy, emphasizing sword and sorcery, will be the book I still get monthly. Will be Rat Queens.
Right.
Rat Queens is Dungeons and Dragons with you and your drunk friends that played it in high school, college, and maybe even in your adult lives. I mean, you're getting into bar fights, going into whorehouses, and occasionally going into a dungeon and finding treasure.
Yeah.
It's all-woman cast of characters, written phenomenally. They've had some artist changes. I do miss the original artist, but there's reasons he had to go, and the book still continues.
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit. I mean,
this is news to me. I'm not.
So Rock Up Church was the original artist on Rat Queen.
He is a phenomenal artist.
Phenomenal artist. he beat his wife. It is really what it comes down
Oh yeah,
to.
fuck that guy.
Yeah.
He was convicted. At first, it was a charge, which is when I first thought about the book. But from what I understand, he was convicted of it.
He beat his wife. The book, they tried to get a new artist in. It didn't quite work. They canceled the book, and then they brought it back with a new
A volume 2.
Did a soft reboot with a very good artist. It's finally getting legs again. It's been repeatedly a good book. It's funny, adventure, violence, good stuff.
Yeah, it's on my pull list. I read it from month to month, and I actually did not read the first volume, so I jumped on the second.
There you
volume.
go. Now I will say the first volume is fantastic,
Is it?
and it's well worth the read. Pick it up in trades and read it. It's one of those times that it's hard to separate the art from the artist because it is so good. But there's more than the thing about comics that I try to remember. There's more than one person on that book.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to support a wife beater
At all.
But he's off the book, and
the
other creator, the writer, is still writing. It's staying just as good as it always has.
And I believe that who's that writer on that?
I'm terrible at pronouncing his name. It's like Wabe.
Oh, Peter Wabe.
Yeah.
Peter. Okay. He's the same guy that did Peter Panzerfaust.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Which was a fantastic book as well. Pick that up in trades. You won't be disappointed. So,
real quick honorable mention for is one I just started reading the first 2 issues that are in second printing now, so you can still find them on shelves. Also from is it Image? Not sure. Anyway, it's called Realm.
It is Image.
It is an Image comic. Yeah, written by Seth Peck and art by Jeremy Hahn.
Yeah.
Post-apocalyptic Earth that's been taken over by orcs, dragons, and all other creatures of myth. I'm 2 issues in. The main character is a bounty hunter that seemed pretty awesome, and I can't wait to read more.
Yeah, man, it's one of those books that you almost want to call urban fantasy because it doesn't take place in the Savage Land a long time ago. This stuff is now. These guys are walking through skyscrapers, burning out buildings. It's the world as we know it now, taken over by Mordor. It's what happens when Sauron won in Chicago.
Right, exactly. That's been great.
Yeah, it's solidly good. And we actually, had a lot of us had a chance to sit down with Jeremy Hahn not too long ago and chat with him about comics. We've got his information. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on the show sometime soon.
He's just a great guy.
Oh, solidly good guy.
He is just a great guy, a creator that you just want to support.
Yeah.
He's also on a book called The Beauty.
Yeah.
Which he is part of the writing team and does the covers for.
Yeah.
That book will blow your mind. I mean, but that's
not an all ages comic.
Yeah, that is not an all ages comic. It is about an STD that everybody wants and 10% of the population has. So, it's just a guy you want to support.
Man, yeah, Jeremy Hahn. I hope he's listening to this. We know him. We reached out to him, so we'll get back to him and get him on the show sometime in the near future.
Stay tuned for details.
Bum bum bum.
Okay, guys, so that leads us into best adventure comics. I'm gonna have to go with Saga on this one, which is just a fantastic book, as we talked about in the previous podcast, and we'll probably talk about many a times going forward. Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples just nailing that story.
Mine goes to a book called Rock Candy Mountain. It's by a guy named Kyle Starks. He's one of those guys that writes and draws everything. Spoke a little bit about it on the last episode just because it's generally a great comic. So it's a hobo adventure, if that makes any sense to you whatsoever. It takes place right after World War II. It's all about riding the rails and hobo culture. It's also a Faustian tale. The main character has sold his soul for some stuff. The first trade is out. You should absolutely go pick it up. It's not a highly detailed type of cartooning. It's very much a comic strip type of cartooning, but done well. Done in the most long form way that they can. Yeah, I can't sing its praises enough. It's solidly one of my favorite books of the year. Like I said, first trade's out on the shelves.
All right, and Sean?
Oh, well, funny enough, mine is actually also Saga.
Well, that's really not. I mean, that's such a great book. Yeah,
it is amazing. It is, like I said, it's a adventure book, truly in the sense of adventure, of them just traveling through very fucked up situations, but on multiple planets and long distances.
Look at my booze double dipping.
We are. That's what it's called, good taste.
It will happen throughout these sorts of lists where we have read the same books and we like the same books, and this is just one of those situations where Saga is going to get a lot of votes throughout on any end of the year list.
So. Yeah, it's one of those things where the cream rises to the top.
Yeah,
it's Saga's. Brian K. Vaughan is one of the few comic professionals who is probably making about $1 million a year off his work because it's just that good. And so when you're doing that, your book's going to be on top of the list. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. Everything that man touches is basically gold.
That's right.
He's got the comic book Midas touch. So looking at the list, it looks like the next category is best horror comic for 2017. Now, what a horror comic can be, there's a wide range of things that it can be. It can go from anything from just being a straight up scary story to funky fun monsters. I mean, think about Halloween. So some Halloweens you got very serious Halloween type people. Some of them it's just fun and kind of creepy stuff. Mine for the year, and it's been my favorite horror book for the last few years, goes to Harrow County. It's another book written by Cullen Bunn. That dude just nails it. The art duties for the most part go to Tyler Crook. Every once in a while they'll do kind of a sixth issue arc wrap up that they'll give to another artist. He uses a lot of watercolors. I'm not sure if he works digitally or if he works in the most classic style, but it's a very watercolor heavy style, and it's gorgeous. It's about a young girl named Emmy. She's living what you might think of the perfect rural Southern life. And then she realizes she's not a real person. She is basically the second coming of a witch named Hester Beck, who is spoken into the world by a variety of weird, creepy reasons. And there are these... In the South, we have things called haints. It's kind of like haunts. It's just kind of a regional colloquialism. And they're monsters. They're things that lurk in the dark. But it's a very Southern type. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, they're haints. So I grew up knowing about haints. There's all kinds of local folklore about haints in Arkansas. And Cullen Bunn takes that and writes it into the story. It's beautifully done. It's a great book.
This is one of those that we're going to double up on again because Harrow County has been my favorite horror book for a couple of years. Witches by Scott Snyder was actually the year before, and that kind of gave it a run for the money.
Yeah.
But this year, it's been Harrow County. I do have an honorable mention, which is Black Magic.
Yeah.
By Greg Rucka. He's doing the writing on it, and it's about a woman that is a witch, is a detective, and it starts off at the very beginning with a man lighting himself on fire in front of her. And
like you do.
Yeah. And so she's juggling being a witch with being a detective and all of the things that goes into it. And the story is following some witchcraft tales that intertwine with the real world. So that's kind of my honorable mention. Sean, what do you got?
Well, once again, going off the beaten path, my favorite horror manga from last year was called Tomi. It is a manga by Junji Ito, which if that name sounds familiar, they recently started making an anime based off his works, available on Crunchyroll if you ever want to check out some streaming. Tomi, though, specifically is probably his most long-running story. It's about a girl named Tomi who is destined to make anyone fall in love with her and then kill her. And she always comes back. That's about all I want to tell you about this. It's very graphic, very disturbing stuff, but excellent writing, excellent horror to the purest sense. It's not always super like graphic as far as blood, but like the situations and the terror that he puts you into. It's can be very disturbing. Very great read. Anything he writes though is phenomenal. Check out Uzumaki Gyo, and he just released a new book called Shiver, which is like a best of some of his short stories.
Nice. Awesome. I have heard of none of those.
I can hook you up.
As far as an honorable mention thing, I want to throw out a book called Baby Teeth by Donnie Cates. Donnie Cates is one of those writers. This has been his biggest year. He actually just came on my radar at the end of 2016. But you want to talk about just having a blow-up year. That dude is just phenomenal. Writes another book called Redneck that I'm a big fan of. If you ever hear me say the quote, "I'm here, I'm queer, I'm fucking immortal," straight up comes from that. I love that phrase. I love that book as well. But it's done by, the art duties are by a guy named Gary Brown. Just solid front book from Aftershock, which is one of those publishers. It's not super huge, but it's doing big things, man.
Well, I talked about that book last night, and it was just, it's an amazing book. Again, what is the kid? Is the kid the Antichrist? Is he a vampire? We don't know. And I can't wait to find out.
He bit off a nipple, Craig.
He did.
Just straight up, just nipple ripping.
It's a great book. So it looks like next on our list here is best superhero comic.
Yeah, man. Getting some tights and capes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is probably where we all shine a little bit, just because there's such a large variety of superheroes out there. I'm gonna have to go with Action Comics.
Right.
It's just has nailed it all year. I mean, there's so many good superhero books right now. But Action Comics, written and drawn by Dan Jurgens.
Yeah, so it is written and drawn by Dan.
It is.
I know we had talked about that in the last episode.
Yeah. Just absolutely killing it. It's just Superman being a dad, Superman being a husband, bringing out the humanity in Superman. It's just been great.
By the way, shout out to all of the creators out there who do write and draw their own stuff. Like, on one hand, yes, thank you. On the other hand, go fuck yourselves, because you don't deserve that much talent. I have none. And you guys just get to be amazing on several different levels. It's not fair.
I have to feel like it maybe makes the creative process for writing a little easier, because you don't have to relay it to an artist. The script can be in your head and make it work. But then on the other hand, the script still has to be in your head, and you still have to draw.
On some level, though, some of that talent was meant for me, and they just sucked it all up, so I'm a little mad about it.
To be fair for the manga fans out there, that's typically the norm for manga. It's usually written and drawn by the same person, published in a weekly format. And in the case of the One Piece creator, Eiichiro Oda, he has put himself in the hospital several times for as much as he works.
Wow.
So two-man teams are a bit better for the health, but you can't beat when you're the creative driving force. And he has assistants for backgrounds and little details. But yeah, it's manga typically is a drawn and written one-man team.
Fucking overachievers.
These Japanese, man, they are hardworking people.
I think that's complimentary racism.
I know, right?
Yeah,
they work their asses off, for sure.
As a society, they seem to be very hardworking, and from what I know, but certainly in the manga part of it,
literally working themselves into the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read somewhere that Oda sleeps 4 hours a day.
I think they bumped him up to 5 after the last hospital visit.
Wow.
I told him he had to.
Yeah.
Nah, son. I'm getting some Z's. So my best superhero comic of the year it goes to Moon Knight. It was published by Marvel Comics. It was written by Jeff Lemire, who's another one of those guys that is just a rock star in the industry. Probably, as you said last time, does the human condition better than anyone else. It was drawn by Greg Smallwood, and the art duties went to Jordi Belair, who is a multiple Eisner winning, does amazing things. Greg Smallwood's art is just to die over. I can't wait to actually own something that guy drew.
And he's got connections to Arkansas.
Does he?
Yeah. I don't know if he lives here or if his dad does, but he is in the Little Rock area quite often.
That made me feel all tingly in special places to hear that, because I want to own art by that man. Yeah. But so no, one of the things with Moon Knight is Moon Knight's a character who has multiple personality disorder. He deals with mental illness, and I think it's done very well for the most part, especially when guys like Jeff Lemire or his predecessor Warren Ellis was writing it very well. But in this arc, it deals mainly with what's going on in his head, how he sees things differently from each personality's perspective, and it does this really cool thing where the reader doesn't necessarily know what's happening or what's real or what's not, which is a really cool thing because it puts you off your game.
So is this the story, the Moon Knight story, where they had different artists for different personalities? Like when Frank Avila did I forget which personality it was, the one where he's driving the cab.
That was a specific arc on it, But for the main 4 Moon Knight personalities, they had different artists that did each one. So the book was like when you went to a different personality, you got this different style.
And sometimes a couple of artists on the same book because he would switch during the book. Yeah, it was a great concept for sure.
And I mean Frank Avila, just I love that man. Just love everything he does.
As much as I would love to put Batman on this list, I honestly didn't start reading until 2018. So, has to go to the default, Savage Dragon.
Right.
While he may not be a superhero in tights, he tends to punch the shit out of ones that are. Because usually most superheroes in this book aren't the good guys.
Right.
They're usually pretty psychotic or at least high damage destruction. He does work with some, but he's kind of frowned upon. So Savage Dragon, over the top action, over the top everything. Just a joy to read.
90s comics in 2017 and
Yeah.
still doing it. So
He has
Eric
not changed
Larson.
his ways.
you can't, it's working. He's still selling books. So
Yeah,
you can't argue with Eric Larson's formula.
I mean, he's well over 200 issues. I want to say we're nearing 230, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the book, just the longevity of it. And Eric Larson's one of those people who his taste is, he may not be for everyone, but it's he does what he does, and he does it really well.
Well, he was arguably the best Spider-Man artist in history.
That's certainly why I discovered Savage Dragon.
I would say arguably is the right word.
Arguably, he was.
He's definitely one of the better ones.
Yeah, he's a very talented individual.
I do have an honorable mention for superhero comics. Invincible is wrapping up in 2018.
Yeah.
But 2017 was just a phenomenal year for that book, as it's been winding to its conclusion and going to make some of us cry at the end. I think it has one, maybe two issues left, and just a really good book by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Otley. I believe Ryan's got something already lined up that he hasn't shared with the world yet. Kirkman, we know, has everything coming. So
he's going to Scrooge McDuck into a pile of money, is what he's going to do.
When you said something about creators making $1 million a year, there's a comic creator making well over.
And that's from everything from TV and everything else. Are you ready for my shame? You want me to tell you my shame?
Sure.
I've never read a single issue of Invincible.
For shame.
Is it worse that I started it and dropped it?
Yes.
Okay, so
both of you
we're bad people, terrible people.
No, you're not, because I mean, again, as we talked about last night, some books just aren't meant for certain people. The fact that you tried it and didn't like it, or didn't hold your interest enough for you to stay on it.
I do plan to give it another try. I'm partially believe some of it was just the timing. I was doing other things. Well, I think I'm reading more now than
No, don't make excuses. You're a worse person than I am. That's canon. Craig said so.
So the thing about Invincible is that it's a very cartoony style art, and that doesn't necessarily fit into some people's idea of what Ryan Otley's amazing, don't get me wrong.
Oh, no.
And when he gets to his points and he's drawing bloodbaths, he does it as well as anybody.
Oh yeah, I was fine with the art. It was just like I said, at the time I was reading, I borrowed Jerry's Omnibus and just kind of got about halfway through and I was like, I don't feel like reading this anymore. I don't know if it was a slow arc, but I do plan to give it at least another try, Caleb.
You're still a worse person than I am.
That's fine, I'll take it. I read Savage Dragon, I'm a terrible person.
Oh, well, I mean, you probably have to register as something if you read Savage Dragon.
I do actually have sorry not to interrupt, but I do have an honorable mention as well. While I'm not head over heels, the only reason it didn't win, because I'm not necessarily head over heels in love with the book, is Teen Titans. They relaunched again, and I'm giving an honorable mention because after 2 failed attempts, they finally got a pretty solid story going. So not the best, but I got to at least give them credit that they finally got the ball rolling again.
It feels like Teen Titans for the first time in a long time. I don't love Damian as Robin leading Teen Titans.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think he's the big issue with this book for me too. I just don't like
Damian.
I like
Damian. I like him fine in the right story. If I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, Damian, we need a Nightwing and Robin book. Forget Batman and Robin. We've got Batman and the Signal. We got all these. I want a Nightwing and Damian because the one time Damian has actually been kept in line was when Dick Grayson was Batman.
Right.
And he was able to keep Damian in check and actually had growth as a person under Dick Grayson. And there's been crossovers where Damian's went to Nightwing's world, to Bloodhaven, just to check in on Dick Grayson, just because he still respects him, which, if you know anything about Damian, he respects no one.
Well, and that would it'd be like a big brother, little brother romp, and I think that'd be great to see that.
Which they actually did a little bit in the current Batman run. They've had him meeting up a lot with the Robins, including Nightwing. And he gives Jason Todd a lot of shit, but he's a little more respectful to Dick Grayson.
Yeah, he doesn't care for Tim.
Yeah.
He doesn't care for Jason at all, but he really does respect Dick Grayson.
There's another book out right now, which I'm actually going to talk about here in a little bit, where Damien's written really well in a way that I really like him. But I can't do that now because it's in another category.
All right.
So
I think we're coming to that category.
Hold off. We are coming to that comic
Best
category.
crossover comic.
Yep. And so what best crossover means? These are two different things that are different books done by, I'd argue, different publishers that meet up. It doesn't have to be that, but that's what I think of when I think of a crossover. So, it's Batman fighting the Predator, or it's Superman fighting the Hulk, or
He-Man and Thundercats.
He-Man and Thundercats, or TMNT and another book. Anything like that. So mine on this is Batman and the Shadow. It was written by Scott Snyder and Steve Orlando, and one of my favorite artists of all time, Riley Rossmo, did the pencils, and Ivan Placencia did the colors. Riley Rossmo's, his style is so... When you see Riley Rossmo art, you say, hey, that's Riley Rossmo art. It's angular yet fluid. He's got a great line. He does action in a way it moves on the page. But it's not it doesn't look house style at all for anybody. It's definitely his own thing. He's absolutely made his mark. And like I said, when you see it, you're able to identify it. When I see Riley Rossmo's art on a book, I know that's Riley Rossmo. I picked up a trade here recently of a collected edition, and I can't off the top of my head think of what it was, but the only reason I bought it is because I opened it up and it's like, hey, that looks like Riley Rossmo. I checked the titles page and it absolutely was. So when you see him, you absolutely recognize him. Batman the Shadow is a book that just speaks to the heart of the legacy of both of these characters. The Shadow, if you're not familiar with him, he's a pulp character. I love pulp books. He is from the land, he's imbued by powers from the land of Shambhala. He's one of those guys that he's kind of an anti-hero at heart. He'll just kill bad people.
He's Batman without the...
conscience.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it. Without that moral stop where Batman won't kill, the Shadow absolutely will.
He absolutely will. And just with gusto. He's almost like the Batman decided to be the Punisher, but with like magic, mystical, Middle Eastern, weird voodoo thing type powers. It's so good. And it really does just, if you're familiar with these characters at all, they touch on the heart of them. They touch on what drives these guys. And if you're a Shadow fan, this book will almost rip your heart out. Like, there are some hard decisions that have to be made in this book. and just murder everywhere.
So that was actually going to be my crossover book as well.
Nice.
But because I was torn between two of them.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and go to what was going to be my honorable mention. And that is another Batman crossover.
Yeah.
And that's Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And it's actually part 2 right now. It's written by Tinian. Its art is Freddie Williams, which, if you haven't seen a book drawn by Freddie Williams, he did the He-Man and Thundercats crossover last year. He just does some beautiful work.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's a painted style as well, I want to say.
Yeah, and just so much detail in the line work. Yeah. Just one of my favorite artists. And even if the story, which in this case the story is good, but even if the story's not good,
yeah,
I can just look at the book. Which, for me, I can have a good story and okay art and still like it, or I can have average story and great art and still like it. But if I have average or average bad, I probably won't stick with the book. But this is one of those cases where it's just a good story. I mean, Tinian really has gotten more in touch with who Batman is over time as he's written him more. At first, I didn't love him on Batman books, but he's getting where I really do at this point.
He's one of my... I mean, it's hard to beat Tom King, but seriously, I like Tinian better than Snyder, and that might be an unpopular opinion, but I think Tinian writes the books better than Snyder
I'll give you an unpopular opinion. Snyder had 3 good Batman stories. The rest were average.
We're going to get hate mail.
Now we got the hate mail coming. Thanks, Craig.
The rest were, I'm going to say, average.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the way I always felt.
It was good. I read the entire New 52 run that he wrote, and it was good. But there were 3 that were exceptional, and the rest were okay.
Now, I want to clarify something. We're not saying that Scott Snyder's a bad writer. If you read a book called Witches, it's amazing.
I love Scott Snyder's books. I absolutely do.
I just don't think he's that good of a Batman writer. I think Scott Snyder really shone what made him
Definitely getting hate. No.
what made him stand out? Oh, absolutely, and I don't even care. Bring your fight to me, guys. What made Scott Snyder's Batman stand out was the fact that the rest of the New 52 books were veritably different stages of garbage, and most of them were not good.
Now, having said that, Court of Owls, Death in the Family, or Death of the Family,
Yeah.
and then the last one with the Joker, the Batman and Joker fight where they both died at the end. I can't think of the name of it right now. Those three were exceptional. They were some of the best Batman stories ever written. So you take the Court of Owls is just.
I'll agree with Court of Owls. That one really did.
So, and even year one was really good, or year zero was really good. But there was some very average stuff in there too.
Yeah.
So that's all I mean by that, because I don't want to take away from Scott Snyder.
No, for sure.
In that run is considered one of the better Batman runs, and for a good reason. But again, there's also because you're comparing it to a very mediocre time in DC.
Yeah. Again, if Bat Snyder, that's his name, Bat Snyder. If Scott Snyder is your favorite Batman writer, that's awesome. That's great. We just, we have our own opinions of things, and they're ours, and we own them. It's not saying you can't love him or shouldn't love him. It's just my personal views on things.
Well, and I mean, as good as Tom King's been on Batman, the first two story arcs I hated.
Yeah.
I thought for the first time in 20 years I was going to have to drop Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, Batman steering a plane with a rope.
But he wrote a plane train.
He did run a plane.
But having said that, after those first two story arcs, it's been amazing. So, I mean, every artist has to find their groove, or every creator has to find their groove in a book.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where I feel like Tinian has found his groove over time writing Batman.
Yep.
And he's there. He's doing a fantastic job, in my opinion, on Detective. He's doing a fantastic job on the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book.
Yeah. Well, back to your crossover with him and Freddie Williams. I wanted to ask a question, and it's something I just generally don't know. Does Freddie Williams do his own cover or his own colors, or does he have a color artist that works with him? Because that's something I generally don't have the answer to. I've always wondered. I've never had the chance to talk to him at any conventions or anything, because the colors in that crossover as well are like they deserve their own accolades because they're just they're so good. And
so there's no other artist credited on the book.
Yeah, then he does.
So I'm assuming he does his own inking and coloring.
Yeah.
I don't know that for 100% fact, but I do know that his art is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And I want some of it hanging on my wall.
I want several of it hanging on your wall.
My favorite crossover was the only crossover that I read last year, but it was still a very good one. And themed similar to Craig's was Usagi Yojimbo and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was actually a throwback to an older comic, because they've actually crossed paths several times in Usagi's books, usually one or all of them getting warped back to feudal Japan. And this, again, another symbol, them fighting ninjas and evil samurai.
Didn't they meet up in like one of the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle books?
It was either Ninja Turtles or Usagi or Animal Funnies, because that's where he debuted. It was literally like Leonardo just showed up in a portal. They crossed swords. Leonardo went back into a portal.
Yeah, they've got a long history of those characters.
They do, but it was a good, simple story. But I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah, it's a good one.
For the layman who might know what who might not know what Usagi Yojimbo is, can you say a few things about that? Because I don't have an extensive. I'm dying history with him.
Usagi Yojimbo is a creator, owned, written art. I believe he was born in Japan, but now he lives here. He's living in a place called Stan Sakai. He has been writing a story about it's a world of feudal Japan, but everyone's animals. And while it's not bloody by any means, it's been recorded that Usagi has a body count second only to Conan. And that's only because Conan had been published 20 years earlier. He is known for killing lots of bandits, lots of ninjas, and samurai. And it's, like I said, while it is a cutesy animal art style, you could call it, they're very actually mature and classic samurai movies type storylines. I mean, dealing with just feuding wars to him having a child that he can't own up to because of just the caste system of feudal Japan, him being a Ronin, which is master of the samurai.
Do you think Usagi Yojimbo knows what's best in life?
I think he does. I think he can take Conan.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
fighting
oh, yeah.
words, son.
Oh, yes.
I'll come across this table.
But we need to send it into Death Battles on YouTube. If you haven't seen
Oh.
those.
Um,
But yes, Usagi Jimbo, fantastic book on itself.
Conan will eat rabbits too, son.
Oh, no.
So Usagi, his illegitimate son, is being raised by his archenemy as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Currently they've since they figured out because
Okay.
the father who was supposed to be his dad has died, and they still kept it secret. He was still Uncle Usagi to I'm going blank on his son's name, but basically, if I'm not mistaken, because it hasn't been addressed in a little while, but I'm pretty sure that they have since come out and admitted to it, and yeah. But like I said, looking at the art, you'll see it looks like another kind of cartoon funny book, but it's actually got very mature storylines.
It's a great book.
Very cool. Well, that kind of puts us to a point where we're done talking about specific books and specific genres, I think, on ours. I think where we're going to next is actually talking about the comics professionals that we follow, that we all enjoy. I think that we are going to run through this really quick because there's no reason to. We've already mentioned most of these people already, so we'll just kind of give them their titles, as it were. So for the best colorist, I've got Jordi Belair. She worked on Batman, Moon Knight, Injection, which is a book by Warren Ellis over at Image. She's worked on a lot of stuff. Award-winning colorist. She's phenomenal.
I'm going to go with Betty Brettweiser, local woman that I consider a friend as well, but she's an amazing talent when it comes to coloring.
She really is.
I love the palettes that she uses for her comics, and she wins year in and year out for this. So,
Yeah.
I tried to look it up real quick just to double check, but I'm pretty sure she does her color work, and she'll be my pick for artist, which is next. Is Fiona Staples.
Yeah, man.
I believe she does her own colors, inks, everything on Saga. Honestly, I don't know what other work she's done. It's been Saga, and I've just been in love with her art ever since.
She's only done some covers and things like that over the past few years because she spends all of her time on.
Well, I don't want Saga to ever end, and when it does, she's going to have a lot of offers.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
But that also goes into artist favorite is also Fiona Staples for me.
Nice.
And I have Fiona Staples, and because she's a fantastic artist, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Freddie Williams.
Yeah.
Just
Earned it. I'm giving it to Riley Rossmo, man.
yeah.
Like I said, we've already talked about a lot of these people, and I can sing these guys' praises for hours. So jumping on best writer, mine goes to Tom King. He has written my favorite books of the year, my favorite single issues, and if you can do that, you get it. You know what you're doing. He's got more talent in his pinky finger than most people will ever know what to deal with. His War of Jokes and Riddles on the Batman book is probably one of my favorite Batman arcs of all time. The Batman Elmer Fudd crossover was genius. If you haven't read that, it's a crime noir story, and you need to go find it. I don't care what you have to do. And his Batman Annual #2 this year was a heartbreaker. It made this grown fat gay man cry. So,
For you?
Favorite writer would have been Tom King if I had read this Batman Rebirth last year. So right now it goes to Brian K. Vaughan. Saga is just continually an amazing book, amazing story that he's written.
And I have Tom King down as well.
yeah, man.
But just to give somebody else some credit in here, I'm going to put down Rick Remender
Yeah.
for Black Science, which is a book that I didn't bring up throughout here. I think next year we need to add a science fiction category.
Probably. Yeah.
But Black Science is just an amazing book, and Rick Remender, anything he works on is just fantastic. And this is, I'd like to give him some credit. I did have Tom King down, but just to give somebody else some credit in there too.
Tom, if you're listening, brother, you've got 3 people here singing your praises.
It would have been a trifecta if I had got on the ball earlier.
Keep up the great work, man. Everything you're writing, everything you've written, man, from the vision to Sheriff of Babylon, it's all solidly good stuff. I love it. Just
All right.
yeah. So best ongoing series. These are the books that are coming out month after month after month that are going to continue to just steal our hearts. I'm going to start. Well, I'm getting funny looks. What's up?
Go for it. Because
No, he knows my pick.
Oh.
Saga takes breaks, so I'm already talking, so I'll just go ahead.
Good, man.
Savage Dragon, it doesn't take breaks. He's missed deadlines maybe once or twice. It's an ongoing series. It's phenomenal. It's pulp. It's garbage. It's great.
It's saga for me.
That you don't have to explain it. That's yeah.
I said I would argue Saga's a great pick, but it takes those hiatuses, so I can't call it ongoing.
I think we have to put a disclaimer that if you read Savage Dragon, I think it might actually qualify as taking your virginity if you are a virgin. So that's oof. Those panels. That's I don't even. Can you even get those pages? Like, is that a thing? I need to buy that.
You should be subscribed to it.
Mine goes to Harrow County again. Cullen Bunn, Tyler Crook. It's my favorite horror comic. I love the horror genre. I love Southern writers, man. I like to read Southern drama. I grew up in the South. Stuff I relate to. So I see a lot of my youth. I see a lot of my existence and stuff that I can relate to in this book. It's wonderful, and it's spooky and witchy and weird, and it's beautiful. It's my favorite ongoing series.
There you go. So comic of the year.
Comic of the year, the one book that you loved.
Okay, so I mean, obviously Saga is my pick, but I'm going to give an honorable mention to Southern Bastards because it just didn't fit anywhere else in our picks here. But Southern Bastards is an amazing book, and it really deserves some love.
Yeah, I feel like we'd be remiss to run a podcast called Southern Fried Comics or Southern Fried Geekery and not talk about Southern Bastards.
Yeah, it's just an amazing book about living in the South and how football dominates Southern life in this. And for those of us that grew up in the South that
know the ugly side.
I mean, I didn't grow up in the South, but I come from a Southern family in the ugly side of the South. It's wonderful. I think Jason Aaron at the back of the first book said, "I grew up in the South. I love the South. I'm scared to death of the South."
Yeah.
That was how he described himself writing that book. And it really is kind of a look at all of the bad sides of the South. So
the South is dead, long live the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite covers was a promotional cover after, I believe it was after the church shooting, where white supremacists walked into a church and murdered, I think, 7 people. And Jason Aaron then put out a cover of a pit bull ripping up the Confederate flag and pissing on it, which spoke to my heart, and it's a lot of the way that I feel. I'm very proud to be a Southern man, but I'm also very ashamed of some of the connotations that go with being in the South, and I think that it's more for us to fight them. So hats off to those dudes.
Well, the premise of the book is the guy leaves the South, gets out of it. His dad leaves his dad living there. His dad dies at the beginning. He comes back to take care of his dad's affairs.
Yeah.
Stuff happens to him, and his black daughter comes back to take care of his affairs.
Who is a badass.
Yeah. So it's really...
I've heard good things. It's one I really need to dig into eventually.
Yeah. I've got the trades. I'll bring them to you.
I'll gladly give them a read.
You wanna touch my floppies?
Absolutely.
Ooh.
All right. So comic of the year for you, Sean?
It's going to be a nice little echo, though. It's going to be a Saga, which is just, I can't sing its praises enough. The most fucked up Romeo and Juliet story you'll ever read. Go out and check it out. $10 trade paperback with the first volume. No reason not to.
And just characters you fall in love with.
Absolutely. Just well written character arcs, character growth, introduction of
And you mean that in the literal sense. You literally get to watch these characters grow, some of them. Yeah.
There is a timeline. It does see them age, see them change, see them fight and find each other again across the galaxy. It's amazing.
And I know there's going to be people out there saying, give Saga, give it a rest, give somebody else a chance. The reality is that's not the way awards work.
Yeah.
The way awards work is when something comes along better, we'll talk about it in the same way.
I mean, I love a lot of
and
books.
We'll give that thing its love and it's doing proper, but Saga gets a lot because it's earned a lot.
That's right.
My favorite comic of the year actually goes to a single issue. It's a one shot. It's the Batman Elmer Fudd crossover, which a lot of people are going to give me the side eye at that. If you haven't read that book, oh my god! And this isn't Batman cartoonized in the Looney Tune style. These are the Looney Tune characters brought into the real world. These are, it's a crime. It's 1920s crime noir, sepia tone murder mystery, mafioso style thing. Batman's dealing with a guy named Bugs, who is Bugs Bunny, the guy with big teeth. It's probably one of the most interesting, unique takes done on the the Warner Brothers characters that I've ever seen, and I loved every single page of it.
It's a fantastic book. It absolutely was one of my best reads of the
spoke
year.
all up in my heart.
Yeah, it was a great read.
So, honorable mentions. We've had several of them. I want to throw a shout out to Detective Comics by James Tinian. The art was done by several people over the line: Alvaro Martinez, Christian Deuce or Duce. I'm not sure. I apologize if I murdered your name. Ben Oliver, Eddie Barrows, a couple more. Old Man Logan, written by Ed Brisson and Mike Diodato, was just phenomenal. It was a gorgeous adventure. They're getting back into the heart of what Wolverine was now. And a book called The Greatest Adventure by Bill Willingham. He's the guy who did Fables. It's also drawn by Cesar Razik and colored by Daniela Miwa. It takes all the pulp characters like Tarzan, all written and created by the same creator. Tarzan, John Carter of Mars, this big extensive catalog of this guy's works and stuff, and it brings them all into the same universe on this giant adventure. It's a space romp. It's so good. Go check it out.
Awesome.
Honorable mention I'd like to throw out would be kind of in the horror genre, but just overall maybe post-apocalyptic world. The Spread by Justin Jordan. Talked about it a little bit last night with Kyle Stram and Felipe. I'm going to destroy your last name if you ever hear this. It's Sabriero.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic book, and just one of those books that rips your heart out as it goes. Post-apocalyptic world type book, and just a fantastic read.
Honorable mention, like I said, I've been making the excuses that I didn't read it until this year, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Batman. Whether you like the first few arcs, I fell in love with it almost immediately. I love how Tom King has written these C-list Batman villains, the ones who don't get attention. He's just, even in small or major roles, he has worked them in an interesting way.
He made Kite Man make me cry.
Hell yeah.
Like, if you can make Kite Man make me cry, like you've done something. Because who cares about Kite Man? The answer was Tom King. He was the one person. And he has made him a quintessential part of Batman lore at this point.
I said, without giving away too much, he made the ventriloquist an important part of a mission, and it was amazing.
Yeah. He really has taken some of the secondary characters, and
so much that I contemplated now doing a ventriloquist cosplay.
There you go.
That may happen.
Well, guys, that's all the comics we had. We had some other stuff, but it looks like we're pushing on time. So are we ready to bring this thing home?
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this one up, and we'll address some of these other issues that we had on our deal. We'll move them into another podcast.
Yeah, man. We'll definitely touch on them. So thank you guys out there for listening. We appreciate your time. We know how much that we know how much time is worth. We're all busy people, and we appreciate you guys giving us your ears for a little bit. If you have liked what you heard, if you enjoyed the little witty banter and stuff that we have on here, give us a shout out. Give us a star or 5 on whatever aggregate you get your podcast from. It helps us reach more people. It also lets us know how we're doing. If you've got comments, suggestions, anything, let us know. Reach out to us and talk to us. We love the feedback.
Yeah, please. If there's any subjects we're not touching on, we're comic book heavy for sure, but like we all have vast interest in many things, in the geekdom, the nerddom, and all other dumbs.
Yeah.
So please, if it's something you want to hear about, we will gladly discuss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything geek, that's what we're here for.
That's it, man. Well, all right, guys. This has been episode 2 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. We appreciate you listening. Now go forth and read comics.